You are leaving. I packed 3 days ago. The ticket has been in my coat since Tuesday. Before the wedding. Before any of this resolves. Before I let you believe I needed it more than I needed my own name. Jungwoo Chun was 28 years old, chairman of a bulk carrier shipping empire, still staggering from his late uncle's scandal, and he had exactly 5 days to produce a wife or lose everything he had rebuilt. The family elder forcing the deadline was an American named Riley Henderson, and the terms were simple. Marry someone from the approved list by Friday, or watch the succession slip into other hands. The woman Jungwoo chose was not on any list. 6 nights before that conversation about the suitcase and the plane ticket, the 30th floor of the Chun building stood empty during the Chuseok lull. The corner office with its view of Mapogu had been dark for hours. The cleaning shift had started at 9 p.m., and Kathleen Hubbard had worked it alone, the way she had worked it 847 times over 4 years, moving through the executive suites with a cart and a rhythm so practiced she could have done it blind. She was 33, from Atlanta by way of a converted attic apartment in East Oakland. A hotel housekeeper who had been looked straight through by every person in this building except one. She knew where the chairman kept his emergency tie, where the whiskey hid behind the law books, where the small photograph of his late mother was tucked into the bookshelf behind a row of shipping regulations so that no one would see it unless they were kneeling to vacuum beneath the desk. She knew him better than anyone on the approved list ever would. At 11:47 that night, the office lights came on. Kathleen stopped in the doorway, cart handle in both hands, and found Jungwoo Chun standing at the window with his back to her. He had not been in Seoul for 2 weeks. He was supposed to be in Busan until Friday. He did not turn around. "Close the door," he said. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer without thinking about what you should say." 4 years earlier. The job listing said, overnight custodial technician. But Kathleen Hubbard knew what that meant. It meant invisible. It meant 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. while the important people slept, and a paycheck that would cover her rent in Mapogu if she did not eat lunch more than twice a week. She was 33 years old, 5'6", from Atlanta by way of East Oakland, and she had been in Seoul for 11 months when she walked into the Chun shipping headquarters for her interview. The HR coordinator did not look up from her computer screen for the first 4 minutes. Kathleen stood with her hands folded, posture straight, face neutral. She had learned a long time ago that refusing to fidget was its own kind of power. "Your Korean is adequate," the coordinator said finally. "Your references check. You understand this is night work. Executive floors only. You will not speak to anyone. You will not touch anything on the desks. You will not be seen if you can help it." "I understand." "Why did you leave your last position?" "The hotel closed." That was true. The Marigold Grand in East Oakland, where she had worked housekeeping for 6 years, had shuttered 8 months after the pandemic. What she did not say was that the Marigold had been the only place in California that would hire a woman with a gap on her resume. A gap that corresponded to the 18 months she had spent caring for her grandfather while he died slowly in the attic apartment where she had grown up. The apartment a block from the record shop. The apartment with the ledgers. "You may start tonight," the coordinator said. "7th floor. If you prove reliable, you will move up." 4 months later, Kathleen was assigned to the 30th floor. The corner office belonged to a man she had never seen. His name was on the door in Korean and English, Chun Jungwoo, chairman. She learned to read the room the way her grandfather had taught her to read a balance sheet, by what was missing as much as by what was there. No family photographs except the one hidden behind the shipping regulations, small and faded, a woman in a hanbok with the chairman's jawline. No personal effects on the desk. No coffee cups left behind, no half-finished meals. Either the man did not exist or he did not live here. But the whiskey behind the law books told a different story. Single malt, expensive, opened. Someone came here alone and drank in the dark and did not want anyone to know. She cleaned around the bottle without moving it. She dusted the photograph without touching the frame. She vacuumed in the same pattern every night so that if anyone checked, they would see consistency, reliability, the particular kind of invisibility that kept a job. On her 214th night, the lights were already on when she arrived. Jungwoo Chun was 28 years old. She knew this because she had looked him up after the first week, curious about the man who hid whiskey like a secret and kept his mother's photograph where only someone kneeling could find it. The internet told her he had taken over the company at 24 after his father's stroke, that his uncle had nearly destroyed the shipping empire with a scandal involving falsified cargo manifests and a bribery investigation that had made international news, that the board had tried to force him out 3 times and failed. The internet did not tell her that he would look up from his desk at 11:19 p.m. on a Thursday in October and say, "You changed the angle of the photograph." Kathleen froze in the doorway. 3 degrees counterclockwise, he said. Last Tuesday. And then you put it back. She had. She had been dusting the shelf and knocked it slightly, then spent 40 seconds adjusting it back to what she hoped was exactly right. She had been wrong by 3 degrees. "I apologize," she said. "It was careless." "It was not careless. You were thorough. You put it back almost exactly as it was. If it had been careless, you would have left it at a different angle entirely." He set down his pen. "You have been cleaning this office for 7 months. You have never taken anything. You have never moved anything that was not in the way of your work. You have never left a trace except that one photograph, which tells me you were paying attention to it. Why?" No one had ever watched her this closely. No one had ever watched her at all. "It reminded me of someone," she said. "Who?" "My grandfather." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "What did he do?" "He was a Pullman porter, and something else on the side. He kept ledgers for people who did not trust banks." "Did they have reason not to trust banks?" "They had reason not to trust anything. He taught them anyway, how to save, how to read a contract, how to know when someone was lying to them about money." Jungwoo Chun leaned back in his chair. He had the stillness of a man who had learned not to react, and the eyes of someone who had stopped expecting people to surprise him. But he was looking at her now with something she could not name. "You clean offices for a living," he said, "but you speak like someone who could do something else." "I clean offices for a living," she agreed. "That is what I do." He nodded once, as if she had passed a test he had not told her she was taking. "The photograph is my mother," he said. "She died when I was 19. I keep it where no one will see it because I do not want anyone to use her against me." Kathleen did not move. "You may continue your work," he said, and picked up his pen and did not look at her again. That was the first night. There would be 633 more. What Kathleen did not know, and would not learn until much later, was that Jungwoo Chun had been watching her for 3 months before that conversation, not through cameras. Through the small details she left behind. The way her cleaning pattern never varied. The way she adjusted objects by millimeters when she accidentally displaced them. As if she understood that in a room full of secrets, even a tiny change could betray something. The way she did not flinch when she found the whiskey, did not report it, did not move it, did not do anything except work around it, as if it were simply another part of the landscape. He had been looking for someone he could trust in a building full of people who wanted something from him. She was the only person who wanted nothing at all. 3 years and 11 months after that first conversation, Riley Henderson arrived in Seoul. Riley was 61 years old, American, with the kind of expensive haircut that announced money and the kind of handshake that announced power. He had married into the Chun family 30 years earlier, outlived his wife by 15, and maneuvered himself into the position of family elder through a combination of patience, strategic generosity, and the careful accumulation of favors. He controlled the family trust. He controlled the succession protocols. He controlled, in ways that were difficult to trace and impossible to challenge, the future of everyone with the Chun name, and he had decided that Jungwoo Chun would marry by Friday. The meeting happened on the 30th floor in the corner office, 3 days before Kathleen found the chairman standing at the window at 11:47 p.m. She was not supposed to be there. Her shift had ended at 5 in the morning, but she had left her reading glasses on the supply cart, and she had come back to retrieve them, and she was standing in the hallway outside the executive suite when the door opened and Riley Henderson walked out. He looked at her the way people looked at furniture. "Who is this?" he said to the assistant trailing behind him. "Cleaning staff," the assistant said. "Night shift." Riley Henderson's eyes moved over her face, her uniform, her hands. He was calculating something. She could feel it. "The help should not be in the building during business hours," he said. "See to it." He walked past her without waiting for a response. The assistant gave her an apologetic look and hurried after him. Kathleen stood in the hallway for a long moment. Then she retrieved her glasses and left. That night, the 847th night, she understood what had been happening in the weeks before. The tension in the building, the hushed conversations that stopped when she entered a room, the way Jungwoo Chun had been gone for 2 weeks, supposedly in Busan, supposedly handling shipping contracts, but really, she suspected, avoiding whatever Riley Henderson had come to enforce. She had seen men like Riley before. Her grandfather had warned her about them. Some men, he had said, on one of those long afternoons when he was teaching her to read his ledgers, want money. Those men you can satisfy or avoid. But some men want control. They want to stand at the center of everything and feel the world move when they decide it should move. You cannot satisfy those men. You can only outlast them or outmaneuver them, and both of those require you to know something they do not know you know. Kathleen had not understood it then. She understood it now. At 11:47 p.m., the office lights came on. She stopped in the doorway, cart handle in both hands, and found Jungwoo Chun standing at the window with his back to her. He had not been in Seoul for 2 weeks. He was supposed to be in Busan until Friday. He did not turn around. "Close the door," he said. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer without thinking about what you should say." Kathleen closed the door. She left the cart in the hallway. "I have been watching you for 4 years," he said. "You have never lied to me. You have never asked me for anything. You have never told anyone what you have seen in this office, and you have seen things that would be worth money to the right people." "I have." "Why?" "Because you trusted me not to." He turned around. His face was composed, the way it always was, but there was something underneath it she had not seen before. Exhaustion, maybe, or the thing that comes after you have run out of options. "I need a wife by Friday," he said. "The family has given me a list of approved candidates. I am not going to marry any of them." Kathleen said nothing. "I'm going to marry you," he said, "if you will have me." She did not say yes. She did not say no either. What she said was, "You need to tell me what this actually is." Jungwoo Chun crossed the office and sat down on the edge of his desk, which brought him close enough that she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw that he was not quite hiding. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. He looked like a man who was about to ask for something he did not deserve. "Riley Henderson controls the family trust," he said. "He has invoked the succession clause. If I'm not married by midnight Friday, the board gains authority to remove me as chairman. The marriage must be to someone from an approved list of families with existing business ties to Chun Shipping. If I refuse, or if I marry outside the list, the trust releases a controlling interest to a consortium that Riley has been building for 6 years. And you lose everything. I lose the company. I lose my father's legacy. I lose the ability to protect the 4,200 employees whose jobs depend on decisions I make in this office." He paused. "I also lose the fight I have been winning for 4 years, which is the fight to keep men like Riley Henderson from turning this company into something my mother would not have recognized." Kathleen stood very still. She was thinking about the photograph behind the shipping regulations. She was thinking about the whiskey hidden like a secret. She was thinking about a man who had spent 633 nights watching her clean his office and had never once made her feel like the help. "Why me?" she said. "Because you are not on the list. That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters." He leaned forward slightly. "If I marry someone from the approved families, Riley wins. He will have a daughter-in-law who owes her position to his favor. He will have leverage over every decision I make. He will have exactly what he has wanted since my uncle's scandal gave him an opening, which is a chairman he can control." Jungwoo's voice was steady, but she could hear the edge underneath. "If I marry someone who owes him nothing, someone he did not choose, someone he cannot buy or threaten or manipulate, then I win. Not the war, but this battle. And sometimes that is enough to change the terms. You want me to be a weapon? I want you to be a wife. Those are not the same thing." "No," he said. "They are not." He stood up and walked back to the window. The city sprawled out below them, all light and motion, indifferent to whatever was happening in this room. "I am offering you a legal marriage," he said. "Real, binding, with all the protections that entails. I am not asking you to pretend. I am not asking you to perform. I am asking you to stand beside me for the next 3 days and let Riley Henderson understand that he has lost. And after Friday? After Friday, we decide together what this becomes." Kathleen thought about her grandfather. She thought about the ledgers, the way he had taught her to see patterns in numbers that other people missed. She thought about what he would say if he could see her now, standing in a corner office in Seoul, being proposed to by a man who had watched her for 4 years without ever once asking for anything until tonight. He would say, "What do you know about him that he does not know you know?" She knew about the whiskey. She knew about the photograph. She knew that Jungwoo Chun ate alone at his desk 3 nights a week when he thought no one was watching, and that he always left the container on the left side of his trash can so she could dispose of it without comment. She knew that he read poetry in Korean after midnight when the building was empty, and that he kept a list of names in a locked drawer that she had never opened, but had seen him add to twice. Names she suspected belonged to people who had betrayed him. She also knew, from a single moment 4 months ago when she had entered the office without knocking, and found him gripping the edge of his desk with white knuckles, his face gray, his breathing shallow, that something was wrong with him physically. Something he was hiding, something that scared him. 3 days, she said. 3 days. And then we decide. Together. She should have said no. She should have walked out of that office and never come back. Should have caught the first flight to Atlanta and pretended none of this had ever happened. She had enough saved for a ticket. She had been saving for 18 months, in fact, small amounts set aside from each paycheck, a quiet exit strategy she had never told anyone about. The kind of backup plan her grandfather had taught her to always have. "All right," she said. The wedding was set for Thursday evening, 47 hours away. Riley Henderson found out about Kathleen Hubbard on Wednesday morning. She was not present for the conversation, but she heard about it later from Jungwoo himself in the clipped sentences of a man who had spent an hour being threatened and had not flinched. "He called you unsuitable," Jungwoo said. They were in the corner office, morning light streaming through the windows, and Kathleen was wearing clothes he had sent to her apartment at 6 a.m., simple, expensive. The kind of clothes that announced she belonged here, even when everything else about her said she did not. He called the marriage a stunt. He said the board would never accept it. Will they? The board does not get a vote. The succession clause requires a legal marriage by Friday. It does not specify to whom. He will find another way. Yes, Jungwoo said. He will. The other way came at 2 p.m. in the form of a summons. Riley Henderson had requested a meeting with both of them in the executive conference room on the 29th floor. Requested was a polite word for demanded. Kathleen understood this the moment she walked in and saw the way the room had been arranged. Riley at the head of the table, flanked by 2 lawyers and an assistant. The seats positioned so that anyone sitting across from him would have the afternoon sun in their eyes. She had seen this setup before. Her grandfather had described it to her once, the way powerful men arranged rooms to make other people feel small. She pulled her chair 2 feet to the left before sitting down out of the direct sunlight. Riley noticed. His eyes narrowed by a fraction. "Miss Hubbard," he said, "I understand you have been employed as a custodian in this building for 4 years." "I have." "And before that, you worked at a hotel in California. The Marigold Grand, I believe. Housekeeping." "Yes." "And before that?" He smiled, the kind of smile that was not a smile at all. "There seems to be a gap in your employment history. 18 months, no income, no residence on file, no explanation." Kathleen felt Jungwoo shift slightly beside her. He had not known about the gap. She had never told him. "I was caring for my grandfather," she said. "He was dying. I stayed with him until the end." "How touching." Riley's voice was pleasant. His eyes were not. "And during those 18 months you had no income, no savings, no means of support except, I assume, whatever your grandfather left behind when he passed." She said nothing. "I have to wonder," Riley continued, "what a woman in your circumstances sees in a marriage like this. A cleaning woman with no family, no assets, no connections, suddenly engaged to the chairman of a shipping conglomerate. It does raise questions about motivation." "What questions would those be?" Riley leaned back in his chair. "The question of whether you are marrying Jungwoo for love, Miss Hubbard, or for the $40 million settlement you would receive under Korean law, if the marriage dissolved within 5 years. The room went very still. Kathleen could feel Jungwoo coiling beside her, ready to respond, ready to defend. She put her hand on the table between them, a small gesture, almost invisible. He stopped. "Mr. Henderson," she said. Her voice was calm. Her grandfather had taught her that too, the way stillness could be its own kind of power. "I have worked in buildings like this for 11 years. I have cleaned offices and hotel rooms and conference rooms exactly like this one. I have been looked through by men exactly like you more times than I can count. I have never asked any of them for anything, and I have never taken anything that was not mine." She stood up. "I do not know what kind of woman you think I am. But I know what kind of man you are. I have seen your type before. You think money is the only language anyone speaks, because it is the only language you understand. You cannot imagine that someone might make a choice for reasons that have nothing to do with what she can get out of it." Riley Henderson's face had gone very still. "I'm marrying Jungwoo Chun because he asked me," Kathleen said. "And because in 4 years, he is the only person in this building who has ever looked at me like I was a person instead of a problem to be managed. If that is not a good enough reason for you, then I suggest you find a better question." She walked out of the conference room without waiting to be dismissed. Jungwoo found her 20 minutes later on the 30th floor, standing at the window of his office, looking out at the city she had come to almost understand. "You should not have done that," he said. "Probably not. He will come after you now, specifically, personally. I know." He crossed the room and stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, but not quite touching. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "The gap in your employment," he said finally. 18 months. You never told me. You never asked. I'm asking now." Kathleen watched the light move across the buildings below. She thought about the attic apartment in East Oakland, the narrow stairs, the smell of old paper and wood smoke. She thought about her grandfather's hands, steady on the ledgers even at the end, teaching her patterns she would not understand until years later. "My grandfather was a Pullman porter for 41 years, she said. "But that was just the job that paid. The real work was the ledgers. He kept books for people in the neighborhood, people who had been burned by banks, people who did not trust anyone with their money except a man they had known for decades. He taught them how to save, how to invest, how to see when someone was trying to cheat them. And he taught you everything he knew. She turned to look at Jungwoo. When he got sick, I moved back. I took care of him until the end. I learned things about money in those 18 months that most people never learn in a lifetime. Patterns, warning signs, the way certain kinds of fraud always look the same if you know what you are looking for. What kinds of fraud? The kind that looks like opportunity. The kind that promises returns that are too good to be true. The kind that depends on new money coming in to pay the old money out. She paused. My grandfather called them confidence games. They work because people want to believe. They fail because the math always catches up. Jungwoo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Riley Henderson runs a private investment fund. Family money only. Chun family money. I know. You know? I clean offices, Mr. Chun. People leave things on their desks. I have seen the quarterly statements. His expression shifted, something flickering behind the careful composure. And what did you see? Returns that are too consistent. Performance that does not match market conditions. The kind of numbers that only work if money is moving in ways the statements do not show. She had not meant to say it. She had not meant to reveal that she had been paying attention, that she had seen things in this building that she should not have seen, that she had understood them in ways she should not have understood. But Riley Henderson had looked at her like she was nothing, and something in her had refused to stay small. You think he is stealing from the family? Jungwoo said. I think he is doing something with the family money that the family does not know about. Whether that is stealing depends on how you define the word. The light was changing outside, evening coming on. In 37 hours, she would be married to this man, and everything about her life would be different. Kathleen, Jungwoo said. It was the first time he had used her name. She turned to look at him. If you see something like that again, he said, tell me. Do not wait. Do not assume I already know. Tell me. All right. He held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary. There was something in his expression she could not quite read, something that looked almost like the beginning of trust, or the beginning of something else entirely. That night, alone in her small apartment in Mapogu, Kathleen sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the suitcase she had packed 3 days ago. Before the proposal, before any of this. The plane ticket was still in her coat pocket. Atlanta. One way. She had bought it 2 weeks ago, the morning after she overheard the first whispers about Riley Henderson's arrival and the succession clause and the marriage deadline. She had bought it because she had known, with the instinct her grandfather had taught her, that whatever was coming would change everything. She had not used it. She had stayed. But the ticket was still there. The suitcase was still packed. And in 37 hours, she would either be married to Jungwoo Chun or on a flight back to a city that no longer felt like home. She thought about Riley Henderson's face when she had walked out of that conference room. She thought about the way Jungwoo had said her name, the weight of it, as if he was learning a new language one word at a time. She thought about what her grandfather would say if he could see her now. Stay, he would say, not because you need them, because you are the only one who sees what they cannot see. Or maybe he would say, leave, before they break you the way this world breaks everyone who stays too long. She did not sleep that night. She sat by the window and watched the lights of Seoul and waited for morning to tell her what to do. Thursday morning, the day of the wedding, Kathleen stood in the corner office at 6:14 a.m. and watched Jungwoo Chun sign documents that would bind them together for the foreseeable future. The marriage contract was 12 pages. The prenuptial agreement was 47. She had read every word. You are not signing, he said without looking up. I'm thinking. About what? About the suitcase still packed in her apartment. About the plane ticket still folded in her coat pocket. About the way Riley Henderson had looked at her in that conference room, not with hatred, but with something worse. The absolute certainty that she could be bought or broken, that it was only a matter of finding the right price or the right pressure. She had not slept. She had spent the night reading the quarterly statements she had photographed months ago, the ones Riley's assistant had left on the conference table during a late meeting, the ones she had captured on her phone because her grandfather had taught her that paper was evidence and evidence was power. The numbers told a story, not the story Riley wanted told, but the real one underneath. I found something, she said. Jungwoo set down his pen. The fund. Riley's private investment fund. The returns do not match the underlying assets. They cannot. The math does not work unless money is moving between accounts in ways the statements do not disclose. You are certain. I have been looking at numbers like this since I was 14 years old. My grandfather showed me 6 different funds that collapsed the same way. The structure is identical. New investor money paying old investor returns. It works until it does not, and when it stops working, everyone loses everything. Jungwoo was very still. She could see him calculating, the way he always calculated, measuring the weight of what she had just handed him. If this is true, he said, Riley has been stealing from the family for years. Millions. Perhaps tens of millions. Yes. And you found this by reading documents left on a conference table. I found it because I was paying attention. Because no one thought I would understand what I was looking at. She paused. Because men like Riley Henderson have never once considered that the woman cleaning their office might be the most dangerous person in the room. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise exactly. Recognition. You could destroy him with this, he said. I could. Why have you not? Kathleen looked at the marriage contract on his desk. 12 pages that would change everything about her life. 47 pages that would protect her if it all fell apart. Because destroying him is not what I want, she said. She picked up her coat from the chair where she had left it. The pocket with the plane ticket was heavier than it should have been. She could feel it pulling at the fabric. Kathleen, I came here this morning to sign those papers. I was ready. I had convinced myself that this was the right thing to do, that standing beside you was better than walking away, that being a weapon in your war was better than being invisible. You are not a weapon. Then what am I? He did not answer. That was answer enough. I have spent 4 years in this building, she said. 4 years being looked through. 4 years learning to disappear so completely that people forget I exist. And then you saw me. You were the only one who ever saw me, and I thought that meant something. It does mean something. It means I was useful. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. It means I fit the shape of a problem you needed to solve. You needed someone who was not on the list. Someone Riley could not control. Someone invisible enough to slip through the cracks in his plan. I was perfect. Not because of who I am, but because of what I am not. That is not why I asked you. Then tell me why. The silence stretched between them. Outside, the city was waking up, traffic beginning to build. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary Thursday, as if nothing important was happening in this room. I asked you, Jungwoo said finally, because in 633 nights, you never once looked at me like I was something to be managed. You never asked what I could do for you. You never tried to understand me so you could use what you learned. You just saw me the way I saw you. Kathleen closed her eyes. She thought about her grandfather in the attic apartment, teaching her to read balance sheets by lamplight. She thought about the way he had looked at the end, too weak to hold a pen, still trying to explain the patterns that would protect her after he was gone. He had taught her to see what other people missed. He had not taught her what to do when being seen felt like being exposed. "I cannot marry you to win a war," she said. "Not even your war. Not even if the cause is just. Then marry me because you choose to." "I do not know if I am choosing or being chosen. I do not know if this is my decision or just the one you need me to make." She opened her eyes. "And until I know the difference, I cannot stay." She walked to the door. "The documents," she said, "the evidence about Riley's fund. I will send them to the Financial Regulatory Authority this morning, anonymously, through proper channels. An investigation will follow. He will face consequences, real ones, through legitimate means. Not because you destroyed him with your power, not because I handed you a weapon and you used it. Because the truth is the truth, and institutions exist to handle truths like this. Kathleen, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because it is right. Because my grandfather taught me that justice is not the same as revenge, and that the difference matters even when no one else can see it." She put her hand on the door handle. "If you want to marry me," she said, "ask me again. After this is over. After Riley faces what he did through courts and regulators and the slow machinery of accountability. After you know I stayed because I chose to, not because you needed me to." She opened the door. "Where will you go?" "I have a ticket. Atlanta. One way." "You have had it for 2 weeks." "Yes. You were already leaving, before any of this." "I was keeping the option open. My grandfather taught me that too. Always know your exits. Always have somewhere you can go when the room starts to close in." Jungwoo crossed the office. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the thing he was not letting himself show. "I will lose the company," he said. "Without the marriage, Riley wins. The board removes me. Everything I have built disappears." "Then build something else." "You do not understand what you are asking me to give up." "I understand exactly what I am asking. I'm asking you to let me walk out that door without trying to stop me. I am asking you to trust that I know my own mind. I am asking you to want me for reasons that have nothing to do with what I can save you from." She stepped into the hallway. "The evidence goes to the regulators this morning," she said. "By noon, someone will start asking questions. By tomorrow, Riley will know that his fraud has been exposed. He will not be able to use the succession clause because he will be too busy defending himself. That is the weapon I am giving you. Not me, not a marriage, just the truth, delivered through the proper channels." She walked to the elevator. She did not look back. In her apartment, the suitcase was where she had left it. The coat with the plane ticket hung by the door. The morning light came through the small window, catching the dust in the air, making everything look temporary. She sat on the edge of the bed and waited. At 11:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. A news alert. Korean financial regulators had opened an investigation into a private investment fund connected to the Chun family. The fund's administrator, an American named Riley Henderson, had been asked to produce documentation of all transactions over the past 6 years. At 1:23 p.m., another alert. The investigation had expanded. 3 board members of Chun Shipping had voluntarily recused themselves from the emergency session that had been scheduled to discuss the chairman's succession. At 3:56 p.m., the Chun Family Trust announced that all succession procedures would be suspended pending the resolution of the regulatory investigation. Kathleen read each alert as it came. She did not feel victory. She did not feel anything at all, except the strange, hollow quiet of having done the right thing and walked away from everything it might have brought her. At 6:14 p.m., someone knocked on her door. She knew who it was before she opened it. She knew by the weight of the knock, by the silence that followed it, by the way the air in her small apartment seemed to shift and settle as if preparing for something. Jungwoo Chun stood in her doorway. He was not wearing a suit. He looked like a man who had spent the day watching his world rearrange itself and had decided, somewhere in the chaos, what actually mattered. "The wedding is off," he said. "I know. Riley is finished. The regulators found everything. The board has asked for his resignation from all family positions." "I know that too. You saved the company. Without marrying me. Without asking for anything in return. You just did the right thing and left." Kathleen leaned against the doorframe. Her suitcase was visible behind her. Her coat with the plane ticket was still by the door. "I did what my grandfather would have done," she said. "He believed that justice should come through proper channels. That destroying someone with raw power is not the same as holding them accountable. That the difference between revenge and justice is whether you can look at yourself in the mirror afterward." "And can you?" "Yes." Jungwoo looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm not here to ask you to stay. No, I'm here to tell you that I understand why you left, and that you were right. About all of it. About what I was asking you to be. About what I was not seeing." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out to her. "What is this?" "A plane ticket. Atlanta. One way. For me." Kathleen stared at it. "I do not know what happens next," he said. "I do not know if you will let me follow you, or if you will tell me to go home. But I know that I have spent 4 years watching you, and never once asking what you wanted. So I am asking now, what do you want, Kathleen?" She thought about her grandfather. She thought about the attic apartment and the ledgers and the long nights learning to see what other people missed. She thought about being seen. "I want you to come inside," she said, "and I want you to tell me everything. Not because you need me to save you, just because you want me to know." He stepped across the threshold. She closed the door behind him. They talked until the light changed. Not about the company. Not about Riley Henderson, or the investigation, or the succession clause that no longer mattered. They talked about the things that had never fit into 633 nights of careful silence. His mother's hands, which he remembered better than her face. The way the attic apartment in East Oakland had smelled of wood smoke and old paper, and how Kathleen still dreamed about it sometimes. The arrhythmia he had been hiding for 2 years, the one that made his hands shake on the bad nights, the one he had never told anyone about because admitting weakness in his world meant losing everything. She listened. She did not try to fix it. She did not offer solutions or reassurance or any of the things people offer when they do not know what else to do. She just sat beside him on the edge of her bed, close enough that their shoulders almost touched, and let him be afraid out loud for the first time since he was 19 years old. Somewhere around midnight, he said, "I do not know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be with someone who does not need me to be strong." Kathleen turned to look at him. The light from the window caught the edge of his face, the jaw she had memorized over 4 years of pretending not to notice. "You have been strong alone for 9 years, she said. "Maybe it is time to try being strong with someone." "Is that what this is?" "I do not know yet." She paused. "But I would like to find out." His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it. A message from the board, probably. Another crisis arriving. Another fire that needed him to be the one holding the hose. He did not reach for it. "It can wait," he said. "It might be important." "You are more important." She had spent 33 years learning to disappear, learning to move through rooms without leaving a trace, to be useful without being seen, to want things quietly enough that no one would ever know she wanted them at all. This was different. "Okay," she said. He looked at her. "Okay, we find out. Together. Whatever that means." His hand found hers in the space between them. Not dramatic, not desperate. Just there, warm and steady, like something that had always been waiting to happen. She had learned that being seen was not the same as being known. She had learned that trust was not a single moment, but 1,000 small choices, made over and over, in the quiet hours when no one was watching. She had learned that the hardest thing in the world was not walking away. It was staying, and letting someone stay with you, and believing that you deserved it. She had learned that some doors, once closed, could open again. The suitcase sat by the wall, still packed. The plane ticket was still in her coat pocket. She did not reach for either of them. Outside, Seoul kept moving. Traffic and light and the ordinary hum of a city that did not know or care what was happening in this small apartment in Mapogu. But inside, in the space between two people who had spent years looking at each other without ever quite touching, something had finally shifted into place. "Stay," she said. It was not a question. For how long? As long as it takes to figure out what comes next. He squeezed her hand once. "Okay," he said. If this story meant something to you, drop a comment and tell me what you would have done with that plane ticket if you had been Kathleen, standing in that doorway with everything you wanted finally within reach. I read every single one. If you are new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, and I promise the next story will be even harder to walk away from. Thank you for watching until the very end. I will see you in the next one.